Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. Yes, so in this week's video I thought we'd go over the things that we do to try and prevent condensation buildup and muddy puddles developing in our awning during the colder months. So during the colder months you're definitely going to see a lot more condensation, and it's just going to be a lot colder and damper, and you'll feel that in the air in terms of sort of when you're away. So if you've just started off caravanning, I think this will be really helpful for you, because you'll be in this stage now in the colder months. Either you're just getting in, you're just about to purchase a caravan, or you're starting to plan your first trips. And these are sort of going to sort of make or break your sort of experiences with a caravan, and those expectations that you have, where you see lots of YouTube videos of people relaxing in the sun and all smiles and everything along those lines. However, that can be a completely different experience when you first get out at the beginning of the year. Obviously, it's been a lot colder, we could have had a lot of rain, so actually you getting to site for the first time could be totally different than what you're expecting. And sort of having these tips to hand will help prevent sort of you walking away thinking that was a rubbish sort of getaway, or this isn't for you. So it's a totally different setup for what you'd have during the winter months to what you'd have in the summer months. But certainly I'm hoping that this information will set you up for success during the colder weather. So during the winter months, you didn't actually have to put an awning up. So again, if you're sort of a small family, you may have enough space within that caravan to actually sort of, wait until it warms up before you put the awning up. So again, it's sort of down to you how you go about this. Now for us, we're a family of 6, and when we go away for short breaks, we don't really have that luxury, because obviously there's not enough space in the van to sort of move around comfortably. So again, unless it's raining constantly, which luckily we've never been in that situation, we would put our awning up. So one of the first things I would look at is actually the state of your awning, whether you've had a caravan that's come with an awning as a package. But the first thing that you want to do is make sure that that is waterproof, and it's not water ingress that you're seeing rather than condensation, because again there's a very fine line between the two. It will give you the same effect. So again, knowing the state of your awning is sort of the first step. So sort of applying a product to waterproof it would be my first recommendation. And I'll leave a video in the description below about what we did and the product that we used to achieve that. So the second item would be a non-breathable ground sheet, and that's for 2 reasons. That it acts as a barrier, so any moisture in the ground doesn't actually come into the awning itself. And the second one is obviously if it rains a lot, it acts as a barrier and stops sort of pooling happening of water in the awning itself, and then it just becoming an absolute nightmare. And again, I'll show you in a second exactly what we do to actually achieve that. But one thing you do need to be mindful of is the actual ground sheet needs to be bigger than the awning that you have, and I'll show you why in a second. So this is our ground sheet setup, and all I do is go around one side at a time and just rolling it back, creating that barrier and slowly getting it actually placed under the awning itself. So at this moment in time, the only 2 places that this is pegged in would have been the 2 corners closest to the caravan. And as I complete each side, I then just peg out where it needs to be. Now, obviously, you need to make sure that when you are rolling this back and creating that barrier, you are getting it so it's placed underneath the actual awning itself. Because what you don't want to happen is if it was to rain, it comes down your windows, then hits the top of your ground sheet, and then it starts pouring on the top. So obviously, just take your time and make sure that that's in place. So this is what it looks like on the inside. You can hardly notice it, but you have created that barrier with a lip all the way around the outside. And actually, once you've got your stuff in here, you're not going to notice that. But for what you do see and the benefits it brings, it's definitely a game changer, and it saves your carpet getting ruined at the same time. If you are finding this information useful, if you can consider giving it a thumbs up, a share and subscribing to the channel, it really does help the algorithm in terms of promoting this content to other people with interests around caravanning. So your support would be really appreciated. So thanks. So the third item is just ventilation actually through the actual awning itself. For us, we've got vents in the top corners that we make sure they're open. And then the top of the wheel arch is left exposed as well, just so again we've got some airflow coming through, because that's key to not having that moisture build up within that awning. The other thing that we would do is obviously leave the door open as much as possible, and then just monitor the weather conditions. Obviously if it's going to rain, we'll make sure it's watertight and locked up, but if it's going to be okay, then again we'll just allow as much airflow during the day as possible. So item 4 that I've seen have a huge effect is actually having a roof liner in your awning. Now I appreciate not every awning will have this as an option, but certainly have a look at the accessories on the manufacturer's website to see if this is an option for you. But certainly having that sort of barrier between the top of the actual awning itself and the roof liner again has a huge effect in that condensation build-up. So definitely a recommendation to have on that up front. But again, you'd need to check the manufacturer's website to see if they even do that for your awning. So item 5 would be to actually vent the Caravan prior to opening the door into the awning. And what I mean by that is if you've been in there the previous evening, now our bodies will exhale up to half a pint of moisture whilst we are asleep. Now, depending on how many people are actually staying in that Caravan, you can see why when you wake up in the morning, you've got condensation on the windows on the inside of your Caravan. So yes, it's a bit colder, but what you don't want to have to happen here is obviously you've got your heating on full, and there's no ventilation within the Caravan itself. So of a morning, what I would do is actually opening up the roof vents or the windows, just get some kind of airflow prior to actually going into the awning itself. Otherwise, for us, it'd be dumping sort of 6 bodies worth of moisture straight out of that door and straight into the awning, which is what you're trying to prevent, obviously, that build up to start with. So I would sort of crack some windows and just make sure you've got some windows open anyway within reason. Certainly sort of just get a bit of flow whilst you're asleep. Now, what I'm not saying is you open it fully so you're freezing cold, but just having the roof vents on top of the van open just to allow some of the hot air and moisture to escape, but also just get some airflow in there as well whilst you're asleep. So item 6 would be around sort of staying away from cooking in your awning. Now depending on what you're doing, obviously it's going to produce a heat because obviously you're cooking. Also, it's going to produce moisture if it's bubbling away, so just be mindful of what you're doing there. I would sort of recommend actually stick to cooking in your Caravan, because you can have your roof vents open or your extractors going to sort of vent that straight out. But again, it depends on your setup and if you've got that option available to you. If not, then obviously, again, we're back to making sure the doors are open and you're getting as much ventilation through as possible to try and reduce the moisture coming into the awning. So item 7 would be drying clothes in your awning. Now you can get different electrical devices, whether they're heat rails or these sort of bags that you put your clothes in. Now we've had one of these actually in the house before, and if you look carefully, all that does is it does dry the clothes, but it does put a huge amount of moisture from that bag, because it's got the holes in the top, into your awning. So if you are going to go down that route, again, you are going to see a lot of moisture build up within that space. So if you've got a towel rail within the bathroom area, that would be ideal. But yeah, be mindful if you are going to go down that route, you are going to see condensation, because the moisture has to go somewhere. So either, again, as always, leave the doors open, get ventilation through. But yeah, a recommendation there would definitely be to sort of sparingly do that, or use the on-site facilities where possible. So item 8 would be looking at your fridge temperature. Now during the summer months, you'll probably have that on sort of 4 or 5, and normally there's a setting between 1 and 5 on these fridges. But yeah, you'll have it probably on the higher settings during the summer months, because obviously it's working harder. But obviously it's the opposite in the winter months, and you may have forgotten to do that. So I'd probably go back down to sort of setting 1, see how you get on, and see if the fridge is cold enough, and then slowly work your way up. But obviously allowing it to sort of do less will produce less heat, and obviously that's not going into your awning. So again, something just to consider and have a look through. But again, different fridges, you'll have different ranges, and you'll just need to keep working out what's best for you. But again, something that's probably overlooked, but yeah, definitely something to look at. So the 9th item would be around sort of the setup of your awning. And what I mean by this is if you've got storage items hanging from the rail, So normally you have two lines, or on some manufacturers, one would be to actually attach the awning to the Caravan, and the second one is to actually attach different products for storage. Now the issue you've got here is unless you've pegged out the corners, you're going to create this sort of wavy effect, because when you've added items to those storage bins, you're going to have a sagging effect if you're not careful, and then what happens there is water will pool actually within that space. So again, that's another area that you just want to be mindful of, is pegging out the corners so it stays completely flat. But you'll know that because again, you'll be able to go outside and actually have a look at your awning and see what it's actually doing. But yeah, for us, if we hadn't pegged the sides out, we would have 3 separate pockets where water would pool, and it'd be a case of going out each morning and pushing up and get rid of that. So again, just be mindful of that, and also you're putting additional stresses on the awning by having that weight up there. And also depending on how good the seams are on that, you could be allowing water just to drop straight in. So just something to be mindful of on that event, but you'll notice that next time you're out and about. So I really hope these tips are going to be useful for you. Certainly if you're new to caravanning, definitely some areas that I would recommend, and certainly that was going to set you up for success on your first trip out. There's nothing worse than thinking, like you say, setting up for the first time and it does rain for whatever reason, or you've got to build up with condensation. It'll really put you off. We were certainly in there a couple of years ago where we've attended site, and actually we've had puddles before we even got started, and then you start thinking, oh, is it really worth all the commotion for this? So I really hope, like I say, this will set you up for success. As always, if you've got any additional tips you want to share, that would be great. Please drop them in the description below, because again, all the information that we can share everybody, that's the name of the game here. And hopefully overall this has sort of given you a good starting point. But if you found the video helpful, if you can consider giving it a thumbs up, giving it a share and subscribing to the channel, that would be great. And I will see you all on the next one. Cheers all.